Listen, this morning was a rough morning in therapy. Like, just because I don't... The long and short of it is, when you're going through all this trauma therapy and going through your childhood trauma and all the shit that you've gone through, you start to think that, like, oh, like, everybody goes through their shit. My shit was not that bad. Like, you deal with it. You're an adult now. You've worked through it. You're like, I became stronger. Like, whatever the fuck. But today in therapy, I'm going to tell you what's really hard is that when you have somebody acknowledge, yes, you've been through some shit. My therapist looked at me today after I explained some of the shit. Just some of the, not all of the shit. A minute amount of the shit that I dealt with when I was younger from my dad and his wife, that he had looked at me, he was like, you've been through some shit. And I was like, what? And he's like, you've been through a lot of shit. And I was like, no, I guess. And he's just like, no, take a minute to acknowledge that. You've been through some fucked up shit. And I was like, okay. And he's just like, would you like to just take a second and imagine what your life could have been like and the person you could have been? Take a look at your trajectory if you would have had a supportive family. And I was like, nope, because my brain has never fucking once even thought of thinking of that, because why the fuck would I? Like, who wants to think of what could have happened if I had not had a dad that didn't stand up for me with his sociopath wife? Like, nobody wants to fucking think of that. Like, that's what we went through today. So going through all this like trauma healing and all this like inner child stuff, it's very hard. It's very hard when you're in therapy, but having somebody acknowledge it and tell me, yeah, you really have been through some fucked up shit, hit me. It rocked my inner fucking soul in a way that I never thought it would, because honestly, for years I was just like, just like everybody goes through their shit, and I almost thought that I was crazy for thinking that my shit was hard shit. Like, I really was just like, this is what it is. Like, just everybody goes through it. No, everybody doesn't go through that shit. Everybody does not go through that shit. And realizing today that everybody doesn't go through that shit was hard. Fuck, it was hard. And having to sit there for like whatever length of time trying to imagine, like, just imagine, Janae, if you had a supportive family, if you had people like your mom and your gram surrounding you up until now. What? Are you kidding? Different life. Totally different life. So that was my morning, right? Very, very rough, but helpful, right? So I feel like everybody should have to do that. Like, we're taught, like we teach ourselves to not, like, don't think of the what ifs, don't think of the if onlys, but having somebody actually fucking acknowledge that, like, yeah, we all go through our shit, but what you went through, I'm telling you right now, I don't care what you've been through. I don't care what I've been through. What you went through, was some fucked up shit. It was some fucked up shit. Nobody deserves to go through that fucked up shit. Like, that's some fucked up shit. Take 90 seconds. Fucking imagine, like I had to this morning. You're allowed to cry, because it happens. Take 90 seconds and fucking just think. Think about what your goddamn life would have been like if you had supportive people, supportive family members. If your dad chose you, right? And if your mom chose you, if your parents were supportive to you instead of a sibling, or whatever your story is. Just imagine if you had any other fucking human being on the planet support you instead of you having to like be your only person. 90 seconds. Just take 90 seconds to fucking think about that. That difference in that feeling of thinking about what you could have been versus all the pain and the hurt and the crying you go through now thinking about your past. That's how you know you've been through some fucked up shit.